What's going on, everybody? This is the Sports Counterpoints podcast. I'm GB. I got Brian and Coop with me. It's January 24th, 2024. Let's just get into it, guys. Let's do it. So starting with we're gonna do the NFL. So we're gonna talk about the playoff games. We're gonna talk about some NFL coaches, maybe a hypothetical NBA question for the guys if we got time. So let's start with the playoffs, man. We've been talking about this a lot recently, right? Because it's the playoffs, and it's all we're kind of talking about as we get to the Super Bowl and the season ends. So let's just go down the list, man. Starting Saturday with the Texans and Ravens. CJ and the boys were, shout out to them and D'Amico Ryans for what they did in their first year together. But just not enough when you're coming against a team like the Ravens. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, like I said, this was going to be a really good game, I thought, but it just didn't get to that point. The Baltimore Ravens managed to make a game that was supposed to be easy for the best team in the league look like an easy game for the best team in the league right now. Lamar Jackson proved the reason why he is both a previous MVP and a current front runner for the MVP this year, with 2 on the ground and 2 in the air. He wasn't trying to do too much in the air. He only got 152 yards or something like that. He passed a little bit early, but he won with his arm, his legs, and the team was also able to throw a whole bunch of looks at the Texans, confuse the young quarterback, put him in situations, and just kind of bully him, muscle him up, and that ultimately was a big factor for the Ravens to be able to have an impressive victory. There's absolutely nothing to be taken away from the Texans on this season. I mean, they had a rookie quarterback. They were expected to be horrible, and here they were in the playoffs, competing with one of the top teams in the league on the divisional round weekend, playing football. That's beyond even the most lofty of expectations. It's even it's beyond reasonable expectations and lofty expectations. So there's nothing to be taken away from CJ Stroud, who I think has shown he's got whatever that it factor is, and will be a factor in the top quarterback conversations of the future from now and going on for a few years. It was a great season for them. There's nothing to be taken away from them. And, the Ravens march on.
I wouldn't have watched this game if Jacksonville was playing them. But Houston was playing, so I'm being honest. So I watched. Look, I'm happy for D'Amico Ryans, but I knew it was going to come to an end this game because of the talent disparity. It's just a huge talent gap between what Houston has. That's a lot of coaching going on over there in Houston. It's not a lot of talent, whereas Baltimore has the coaching and they got the talent. You put those together, the score is to be expected. I mean, there's a reason why Houston did not score an offensive touchdown in this game. Baltimore is just too good, and they're just the class of the AFC and probably the NFL at this point in the season. If you bet on Houston, I feel absolutely sorry for you because you were never in this game. I know you probably got happy when you had the punt return, but you were really never in this game. Baltimore was business as usual. The only reason I think the reason why the gap, the score wasn't more for Baltimore is because in the first half, I think they were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, like chucking the ball downfield when they should have just stuck to the Baltimore, game plan of running and mixing in a little bit of passing as well, which they did in the second half, and they just blew the game wide open. So, you know what? Honestly, we're going to talk about Baltimore and KC. I wouldn't expect if Baltimore blew out Kansas City, I wouldn't be surprised next week, but we'll talk about that a little later on. But good win by Baltimore and business as usual.
Yeah, there's always something to be said, too, about opening the game up in a different way, right? Like if the team's coming in prepared for your typical game plan, you have a better team than them. You do something a little different, kind of get the defensive guys thinking something different, and then go back to what you did. So it worked either way. And Baltimore looked great. Like Lamar was 2 touchdowns in the ground, 2 touchdowns in the air. I don't know how you're supposed to keep up with that. So 28 points will win you most games in NFL, just like that. So,
No
so
doubt
that's
why
that
he's
game.
a favorite right now.
100% should be. Next game, man. So Saturday night in the rain in Santa Clara, California. San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. Coop, what'd you think about your team?
Man, so, all leading up to this game, I just heard all the narratives. And to me, this game was just all about narratives and what you believed as your personal narrative coming into this game. Now, if you were a person that a lot of Jordan Love's getting a lot of love. So if you believe Jordan Love is good and deserves a big contract because he's going to get a huge contract supposedly next season, then you, in my opinion, like the rest of the media, just ignored that he could have threw 4 interceptions in this game. He threw 2 actually, but he could have threw 2 more. One to Lenore that he dropped, and one that was a prayer that got a pass interference call. And to be honest with you, the first one he threw was the worst interception I've seen in the playoffs. It was 3rd and 2. The guy was wide open, 6 yards down the field, and he threw it completely behind him. The receiver tipped it, and then Dre Greenlaw picked him off. But in addition, you also ignored the last 17 minutes of this game, which was the 4 possessions that Jordan Love had the ball. He was 6 out of 12 for 30 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions with a 16.7 quarterback rating. And in my opinion, he blew the game for the Green Bay Packers in the 4th quarter. And now that last interception was kind of Favre-like to me. I thought that was Brett Favre throwing the football, because that's exactly how Brett Favre ended a lot of games in his career. Now, whether you believe this narrative or not, the truth is, just like I said last week, Green Bay's success is dependent on the running back, Aaron Jones. During the streak that everybody's been praising and love, Aaron Jones and the offensive line has been killing it in the running game, and that's what made Jordan Love successful. Jordan Love's first 6 possessions, he was 15 out of 22 for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. The running game, Aaron Jones, they were doing their thing. When it slowed down late in the game, that coincided to Jordan Love's back game. So to me, in my mind, his success correlates to the running game. Now, on the flip side, if you're talking about Brock Purdy, if you believe he's all that, like a lot of people seem to think, or, want to try to defend the haters or whatever, okay. And if you think he's a quarterback of the future, okay. But you're ignoring the fact that he can't play in the rain. That's official, and it can't be disputed. With gloves, without gloves, it doesn't matter. He can't play. And I was telling these guys earlier, when I watch Brock Purdy play in the rain, it's like when I was watching Jimmy G play when it was perfectly sunny outside. Whenever he threw the ball, you just hope for the best, and when the ball was thrown. And that's what I did every time Purdy threw it. But you're also ignoring the fact that Mike Shanahan, he will move off a quarterback in a minute. In a heart, it doesn't take much for Shanahan to move off a quarterback.
Tried to move off Purdy. If Brady would have came back, we wouldn't know Purdy now.
Exactly. He wanted to move off of Jimmy G as soon as he blew the 3rd quarter of that Super Bowl when he did not throw the ball to wide open receivers against Kansas City. He wanted to move off him then. Got Trey Lance, traded a couple 1st-round picks for him, not 3, just 2, left and traded him during his rookie contract to Dallas. So when people ask me, do I think Brock Purdy will be the quarterback for the next 10, 15 years or the future, whatever, so I'm saying it's 50-50. I don't know. But getting back to the game, the reality of this game is the 49ers just should have lost. They were outplayed and they were outcoached. Purdy played a bad game. Jordan Love, in my opinion, played a worse game. And Kyle Shanahan, he was worse than Brock Purdy. He didn't know what he wanted to do. In the end of the first half, he's conservative. When it's raining, he wants to be aggressive. So he had a bad game as well. And I've seen Reed and Belichick and all those has bad games. So it's not the end of the world. But sure, Shanahan, he was not good. And look, I've seen Brady play a lot of games where he played, subpar and led his team to a field goal when it matters. Purdy did not play well, but at the end he got a touchdown, which helped his team win the game. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I hear these narratives, if the roles were reversed, if it was Jordan Love who came back, I think we would hear about it constantly ad nauseum all through the week until they played their next game. And if it was Purdy that threw a dumb interception, people would be like, at the end of the game, they would say, oh, he can't win the big game. But how amazing is Jordan Love to overcome 3 quarters of adversity to pull out a victory? So the hypocrisy, I don't like. Both quarterbacks were not good. Brock Purdy was able to be good enough at the end to help pull out a victory. Brian, what you think about this game?
I think it's very nice of you to have not changed your opinion when it comes to what the other part of that narrative, which is, Brock Purdy can't win games without Christian McCaffrey. I mean, every single time Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a big game or isn't having a good quarter or a half or whatever, Purdy also can't succeed. McCaffrey was the real reason why the 49ers won this game when he started making plays, or in the 3rd quarter mostly, but towards the end of the game, the offense started opening up, and all of a sudden Purdy looks like he can play quarterback and get touchdowns. I know you mentioned that in the last drive, it didn't have much to do had much to do with anybody else other than Purdy, and that's probably true. I guarantee you that those defenses were set up to stop McCaffrey because he had already done all the damage before that. When it comes to the hype with these two guys, look, there's a lot of hype around both of them, but I don't think that the hype is anywhere near equal. Purdy has been on a hype train unlike we've seen for years for a quarterback who came out of nowhere. For most of this season, they talked about him as the front runner, guaranteed MVP until he got smoked by Baltimore. And that was only a few weeks ago. There has never been an iota of a whisper about Love in those types of in that echelon. So, I understand that they both a lot of hype and there's a lot of narratives going on there, but these are two different things at two different levels. And I think Love is one, this was not his best game, but I think for a player playing in their first year in the playoffs, Purdy's had another opportunity. He did very well, did outstanding. I understand that he threw a ugly one early and a critical one late, but these things happen for teams, for quarterbacks in their first time in the playoffs, and I don't take anything away from him, because at the beginning of the season and throughout the middle of the season, when people were asked about Jordan Love, they were talking about whether or not they should get rid of him at the end of the season and move on. And then towards the end, when they started winning games and lucked into the playoffs, and I do mean lucked into the playoffs. They needed 3 different things to happen, and magically they all did. They needed the Vikings to crap the bed in order for them to be able to have a chance. I mean, the Vikings only had to win 1 game in last year. They could not do it. Anyways, so Jordan Love, his narrative has changed a little bit towards the end of the season, and I do think that as someone who roots for the Vikings and playing against a team that does keep their quarterbacks usually for a long time once they make a commitment, I'm not especially looking forward to having to play Jordan Love over the next 5-6 years as he's going to start getting better and better. I don't know about huge contracts, but he's got a decent $20 million deal coming for next year and beyond that. So he's got a year more to prove it and see what's going to be out there. But I do think that Jordan Love has been really impressive, and I don't think that he lost this game. One thing that I do think, though, is when you're playing probably the most talented team in football, you cannot get conservative at the end of the game. If you're going to sit there and do these dive plays on 1st and 10 and basically give up a play to get 35 seconds off the clock against a talented offense, you deserve to lose. And this is what the coaching did. This is not Jordan Love calling handoffs, dive plays, just go straight up the middle. Coaching said, we're going to continue to do this every single time we get a 1st and 10, and then put it on Jordan Love to convert 3rd and mid mostly, right? 3rd and mid, 3rd and long. That's a lot of pressure to put on a young quarterback, but even more importantly, it's giving opportunities to talent. And we all know, McCaffrey's really good. We all know Kittle's really good. Debo was hurt. Ayuk, who's still there. This is it's a talented team. You give them those kind of opportunities, and eventually they'll find a way to cash in, and they did. And I put that on the coaching. I don't think it's a coincidence that after that happened, which ended up costing them the game, the DC gets fired or let go. I think they basically said he won't be renewed because his contract was up or something like that. I don't know what kind of hogwash was. He was fired. And he was fired because of a Carolina game earlier this season, but also because the defense gave up a last drive to knock him out of a playoff in a game they all thought they should have won. But I put this squarely on the head coach. He got conservative late. It cost him the game. And I don't put this on Jordan Love, although I'm not saying he was outstanding. I do think he was really good. And I think that he's shown why he's going to be a good young talent going forward.
Well, we'll have to see, but I will have to push back on the McCaffrey thing because, look, McCaffrey only ran the ball 17 times this game, and Brock Purdy threw the ball 39 times. McCaffrey only accounted for 36% of 49ers offense, whereas Aaron Jones accounted for 35% of the Green Bay Packers offense. So I can't say that McCaffrey is the one that pulled out this game, though he did have a couple of nice touchdown runs, but also yes, Purdy did engineer that last drive, but what people still don't understand is Jordan Love has played in more games than Brock Purdy. He's played in 27. Brock Purdy's played in 25 and has been in the league for 2 more years than Brock Purdy. And the reason why Brock Purdy was getting hyped, I didn't want him to win the MVP, and I'm glad he's not going to win. But the reason why he was getting all this hype because he was number 1 in a lot of statistical categories, metrics for quarterbacks that are important that correlate to winning. That's the reason why he was in the MVP conversation, not because he's the best quarterback in the league. When you're number one in deep ball percentage and number one in yards per attempt, those are real NFL stats. And he led the league for the entire season in those stats. So when people say he doesn't elevate teammates, that's a bunch of hogwash. 1,000-yard season for Kittle, first one since 2019. All-purpose yards, 1,000 yards for a wide receiver and a running back. That's never happened in the history of the NFL. And McCaffrey had 2,000 all-purpose yards. He elevates his teammates. And one of the reasons why McCaffrey's so
good. I feel
good.
like you're making my argument for me because I was the one that said McCaffrey was the key, and now you're running off stats about how critical he was.
No, I'm running out stats of how valuable Purdy is to everybody else because it's the first team in history to have all these guys with 1,000 or more all-purpose yards. That didn't happen before Purdy. That didn't happen with McCaffrey on any team, except when he played with Brock Purdy. I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying he elevates his teammates, and that narrative that he doesn't, that's a lie. These guys have – Ayuk has had a career year this year playing with Brock Purdy. So he does elevate his teammates. But we'll talk about –
this is called correlation or causation. Right? So Brock Purdy gets there when he does. At the same time, probably the most talented running back in the league happens to come to the team. And so the question is, was it the fact that Purdy started or the fact that Christian McCaffrey just got there? Because they got there and started playing pretty much at the same time.
You don't think
I will tell you this.
You don't think they help each other?
I will tell you this. You forgot when you talked about how he only ran it 17 times, but he also had 7 receptions for 30 yards. And you were talking about 36% of the offense and why he wasn't. And then you mentioned that Aaron Jones had 35% of the offense. Yep. So if Aaron Jones was the key driver for all the success on one side, and the stats are basically the same from a percentage standpoint for Green Bay, you're basically saying that they were the 2 players that were really mattered the most. And I'm fine with that narrative and I'm fine with all that. But McCaffrey, every time McCaffrey isn't able to get it going, whether he's hurt and banged up like he was against the Vikings, or whether or not he, just hurt and out, or just ineffective because of a good defense, Purdy starts looking like he's not the guy. We were talking about this at the beginning of the season, and Glenn and I were kind of saying, look, he's got to prove it. And he had their opportunity to prove that he could win the game by himself, and that was against the Vikings. They lost. I'm not going to tell you any other thing than that. Purdy hasn't shown that he can do it without McCaffrey. McCaffrey has continued to do it. He's been one of the best players in the NFL when healthy for as long as he's been in it. So I have to take my hat off to McCaffrey. I do think that he's the reason why that all of these things are happening. It's really easy to beat Ayuk and Kittle when everyone's stacked in the box because you have the best running back, multi-threat running back in football.
I don't know, 3-0 without McCaffrey in his career. They said he couldn't win a close game, couldn't win without Debo. Kyle couldn't come back in the 4th. Brock has to lead a game-winning drive. Looks like that narrative got
0-1 against the Vikings with McCaffrey.
I said it probably helped that he was facing the Packers defense and not his own.
But both times that Kyle is coming back, he's like 2-31 when trailing the 4th. Both those wins have been against the Packers.
Bro, I think this is the first one. He got
No. It was again. Remember in the playoffs when they had that block punt, they were down in that game and they came back and won. We didn't score any offensive touchdowns that game. And how fun about that punt.
I will say something interesting from a fantasy perspective. I think it was 50-something% of people who had Christian McCaffrey on their teams made it to the finals.
Yeah, I did too.
So his production was key. And then I ain't gonna let you talk about Jordan Love because he took me to my first championship.
He did.
That
first championship.
Yeah.
You look at his stats. You look at his stats. Ain't nothing to sniff at. His stats this year, 32 touchdowns.
That's how you win games. You know what I mean? His stats, like that's what we play it for. You need points. So
now he did throw the ball 130 more times than Purdy did and had less yards, but we won't go in semantics.
That seems to tell me that he was more important to the success of his team than Purdy was because he threw 100 and some odd less times.
No, that means he wasn't checking it down. And he didn't have a bunch of incompletions. But we'll go. Come on.
Yeah, we got more games. You can talk about the Niners more anyway.
All right, let's go.
I'm gonna throw something out that y'all can't even reply to, which is awesome as the host. CJ Stroud is actually better than Brock Purdy because he's doing way more with less. You don't even know his receivers. Everybody knows who plays for the Niners before CJ. But we're going on to the next game. No responses.
No, I think CJ is killing it. No, I think CJ is playing better than a lot of quarterbacks, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
A lot, yeah.
He got so I'm starting to pop. But anyway, next game, man. So you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Lions. Detroit Lions, second home playoff game, going to the NFC Championship. Bananas, man. What'd you guys think about this game?
MVP?
Well, this was a fun game to watch.
That stadium was crazy, man. I love
the stadium was crazy. Look, it is a little bit hard for me as a Vikings fan to see the Lions and the Packers be successful, have big games, be in moments when just last year we were the talk of the NFC, and here we are out of the playoffs. Our quarterback's hurt, maybe even gone. And now these other teams are rising to the occasion, and it looks like Caleb is going to Chicago. So it could be rough times ahead for me. But the Lions, Dan Campbell, there's so many memes about the gumption. I'll call it gumption. There's other terms used for it amongst others, but that guy is not worried about what you, I, or anyone thinks about the decisions that he's going to make. He went down there, and it was not close. This was not a 4th and 1 on by the goal, and he said, "Let's go for it," and got that touchdown. It is impressive to see not only how he coaches, but how his team responds to how he's coaching. They go out there and they're like, "Hey, coach just gave us a chance that we would never get under anyone else to go out here and make a play to win, score a touchdown, and possibly win this game." Or this early, but win this game. We need to execute, and everyone just seems like they dig in a little harder. They crawl off the ground a little faster. They do what they can, and I think that's all a testament to Dan Campbell
100%.
And his way of coaching. On the other side, it's hard to dislike Baker Mayfield's game right now when he is just basically saying, "F it." And he said, I think in the conference, he's like, "I'm chucking it. I'm going to throw the ball. I don't know where I'm going to be next year, so I'm just going to try and go out there and get touchdowns and let people know that I got an arm and I can sling it." It's easy to see how the Rams were able to play that 1 or 2 those games with him last year, and how they could still get yardage and
still
see his
salty
success here. And see his success here. I don't think he's ever going to be part in the lore. The lore as a great quarterback. I don't think that at any point in time he's going to ever be thought of in the echelon of clutch quarterbacks or anything like that. But he's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And when you got wide receivers like Evan, like they do in Tampa Bay with Evans and the other guy who's an all-star,
Godwin. Yeah.
Godwin, thank you, Chris Godwin. And you get to see him throw to some top talent. He can do some damage.
It's funny. You said this before, I'll let you go, but you said you got to be in the playoffs where the magic can happen. And if you can get a quarterback like Baker who can chuck it, and just like Joe Flacco, which is interesting because the Browns actually could have used him in the playoff run. Baker Mayfield slinging the ball like Joe could have done what Joe did, but that's how, Baker on a team with the crazy defense that gets hot, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So anyway, carry on though. Yeah.
The most important thing is to be there and see what happens next, right? I mean, if you had told me that there would be a game in the playoffs in the divisional round, which is, in my opinion, the best weekend of football all season long, because you've got 4 games and all the teams are usually pretty good and playing pretty well. You've gotten rid of usually the people who lucked in. In this case, the Tampa Bay team was the team that lucked in. And here they were making noise, making plays, and just playing great football. But the Detroit team had a little bit more, whatever it is that you need to win a game like this, because this was fight on one side versus fight on the other side. And someone has to win, and I think Dan Campbell was able to get a little bit more out of his team. Jamar Gibbs, Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. John, all these players
St. Brown
a little bit more. Sorry, Brown, excuse me, and Laporta, who was just great early on. He looks like the next Kelsey or whoever you want to put in that conversation. Mark Andrews, Kittle. He looks like that guy. He looks like Antonio, not the same type of a guy as Antonio Gates, but that same out of nowhere kind of magic in the first year he played.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah. I picked Detroit to win this game, mainly because the Tampa Bay just has issues running the ball. They don't really run the ball that well, and I just don't think Baker was just going to lead them to a victory by himself this game. But I do agree with you when you said it's kind of hard not to like Baker right now, the way he's playing. But I will say, though, he's played against two really bad pass defenses. He's played against Philly, which I said since midseason they're bad, and I said the entire second half of the season Detroit's Lions pass defense is bad. I mean, Baker lit them up for 349 yards, and he did play good in this game. But I think it's more of Baker's success is more of just playing against really bad pass defenses and not really any upper echelon defenses. But at the same time, he took advantage of what was presented to him, and Tampa Bay had confidence in him. Tampa Bay had confidence in him to chuck the ball with Baker from the beginning to the game all the way to the end, as they should when you're playing against a bad defense. And so I definitely don't put this loss on Tampa Bay. I just think Detroit is just better across the board. But also Detroit, when they're at home in that crowd, I mean, it's electric, man. And I think if we're going to take coaching, the coaching aspect, I don't think Bowles is horrible, but I would have to take Campbell at this time with this team over Bowles any day of the week, whether they played at home or on the road. So, good win for Detroit. And like I said, I think I told you guys before it started, saying Detroit and NFC Championship game in the same sentence, man, that doesn't sound right. But, it's here. Yeah, it's very weird. You know what I mean?
The one thing I would only add to that, which it was kind of the point that you were making, if you're the coach, I think you're looking at this game and you're like, look, I don't have the same horses that they do in Detroit. Yeah. And so what do you do when you're a boxer who's going up against a really great boxer? You throw haymakers.
Yep.
Keep on swinging and hoping that there's something that you do that knocks them out. Yep. And that's what they were trying to do by throwing it 41 times. If you're just like, look, this is our only shot. I don't know that it's going to work, but I'm going to give it everything I can. And I think, it was a fun game to watch.
They had chances
you go down
too.
chucking. Yeah.
Yeah, they had chances too. I mean, at the end of the game, they still had the ball. Yeah, and they still had the ball at the end of the game. So
I am still mystified about going for the two early in the fourth. When they needed 2 more scores because they could have tied it. Right, they could have brought to the point where 7-7 got them to 31.
Right.
It didn't make sense to go for it because they didn't need an extra 2 to get the score
at that time. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Yeah. So good man. That's amazing, bro. I love to see it. So then you got the Chiefs and the Bills, man. Josh Allen and them again. Missed kick, wide right, which sucks. It's not just the kicker, obviously. You can't lose the game. There's many plays that happen during the game, but Chiefs win again. Yeah. Chiefs and Bills in Buffalo. What y'all think?
I know we were on opposite sides of this. I took Buffalo to me was playing better coming into this game, but they've always just proved just not to win these type of games every single year, which is the reason why I picked Kansas City. Kansas City does not have to play great. They're definitely not the best team in the league. Definitely probably not the best team in the AFC at this point, but these type of games, they just find a way to win, especially against Buffalo. Mahomes, 6 straight AFC championship games to start a career. That is crazy. And this is the worst
year he started, he's went to the AFC championship. That's insane.
And this is probably the worst year of his career.
It is.
Yards per play is a big stat that professional gamblers use to gauge teams. And Chiefs have made 7.7 yards per play, and the Bills have 4.7. But the Bills still had chances to win this game. I think I sent you guys a photo of Mecole Hardman because he literally left it all on the field with 1 carry for -1 yard and 2 fumbles and 1 catch for 2 yards. I don't even know why they even played this guy. But on the flip side, for Buffalo, look, a lot of talk about Josh Allen. How well he's played since Joe Brady took over for the fired Ken Dorsey, and he's just been doing all this and all that. But the reality of it is the change that was made is Josh Allen has been running more since Joe Brady took over because he's scared. I believe Joe Brady is scared of his turnover issues, throwing the ball downfield, because that's what he was doing when Ken Dorsey was the offense coordinator. So he's been running more. But in this game, I looked at the stats. He was 10 for 21 for 95 yards and 1 touchdown on passes beyond the line of scrimmage, when only 2 of those completions were first downs. So it's not like he's, the quarterback of a couple years ago when Dayball was there. I'm not saying he regressed. He's still talented and still good, but he's definitely not the same. He's definitely a notch below what people are trying to make him out to be. And that last 2 minutes of the game, we all watched it. He had guys open if he would have threw the ball earlier, but he didn't. So I think that he was more at fault with his decision-making in the game for Buffalo losing this game, because there were guys that were there, and he ended up taking shots late in the game in the end zone, which he didn't have to do, but I mean, he did. I guess he just reverted back to his old self or whatever. He couldn't help himself, and they end up losing the game. And then going into next season, I've read that Buffalo will be $49 million over the cap. So it'll be interesting to see, how competitive they will be in these subsequent years if I guess they're paying Josh Allen so much amount of money, how they're going to fill out the roster. So, who knows? This could be the last, really good Buffalo KC game that we see for a while. But, that's my take on the game. What about you, Brian?
I think they'll probably extend Josh Allen and give him a big signing to get that money back to him and then stretch it out. But anyways, on the game, I think I hear you, but Mahomes only threw for 215. This was not a game where the weather was outstanding and a lot of things were going on. It wasn't, blizzard, but it was also, it was tough conditions, not ideal conditions to play a football game. And they all played well. I do think that you're 100% right about the Josh Allen narrative. I don't think it's because he's scared, the coordinator is scared or anything like that. I do think that they realize that Josh Allen is at his best when there is a more significant threat of him running the ball than there is. And that's the same goes for Lamar Jackson and other, mobile quarterbacks. And Allen is amongst one of the more mobile quarterbacks. I think that they probably just encourage him to take those opportunities when they make sense. Sure, he could probably find time to throw more, and he needed to throw more down the stretch and hit those wide open wide receivers. But again, this is another one of those games where Buffalo got conservative and got tight as the game went on, and they thought they could kind of hold serve, when they had a lead at the half. And ultimately, that's what leads to losing games. I thought Buffalo would win. I thought that this was our opportunity. We talked about the past, and how KC had always won those. And I pointed out that those were always KC home games. And this was the opportunity for them to have a game in their own stadium, and hopefully, turn the tides. And ultimately didn't work that way. It is unfortunate that another, kicker kind of cost someone some of the game. But the reality of playoff football should be for coaches. You do not want to leave it to the kicker. And when people play the game, when they have the opportunity to score touchdowns and settle for field goals, you usually lose. These are teams playing. These are the best teams in football. If you get tight, if you get conservative, the other team will take advantage of you getting conservative and win the game. You've got to keep your foot in someone's throat the entire time you have it there, and you got to twist at the end of the game and throw a touchdown to give you a dominant lead and take their heart and soul and not give them the idea that they have a chance to win.
Yeah, that's the same thing happened in the Packers game. Packers-Niners.
Yeah.
Same. So sliding forward to this weekend, man, you got the conference championships. We're almost at the end of the season, which is crazy. Chiefs and Ravens in Baltimore. First conference championship in Baltimore, I think since 71 when they were the Colts. First one hosted by the Ravens. It's probably going to be cold. What y'all think, Chiefs or Ravens?
Who you got, B?
So I think that this is an interesting spread at 3.5 because really what they're telling me is that they believe it's a 3-point game and they want you to figure out which way that 3 points is going to go. Look, I have been a believer in Baltimore for years. I finally feel like this is an opportunity for them to pay it off. The confidence and the consistency. I think the Ravens are going to win this game. I do think it's probably going to be close. But I'm gonna go with the Ravens getting a touchdown-based score as opposed to a field goal-based score, and so I'll take Baltimore and give up the 3.5 points.
All right, so KC is going to have to be perfect to beat Baltimore. Baltimore is the number one defensive DVOA team, which is an advanced metric team in the NFL, and they're like that for a reason. Now KC's defense is good and is very underrated, but it's not on the level of Baltimore. I think the difference in this game is Lamar Jackson running the ball. I can see him having a good game on the ground because Josh Allen gashed KC 12 times for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lamar ran 11 times against Houston for 100 yards. And I just think he's Baltimore is just a better team. We all know this. KC is not the KC of old. If it's a blowout, a 7-10 point game, Baltimore will be on that side. If it's a 3-point game, 2 or 1 point or something like that, that's how KC will have to win this game. It will have to be ugly. They're going to need some turnovers, some luck, some bad plays, fumbles, bad passes, whatever, to win this game. Baltimore can play less perfect and win this game, and I expect Baltimore to win this game. I think I would say they'll win this game by 8 to 12 points, Baltimore. Now, I want Kansas City to win personally.
No.
Personally, I want Kansas City to win. I just don't see it happen. Well, I'm not saying I don't see it happen, but if I'm a betting man, I'm taking Baltimore to win
It's
this game.
supposed to be 8 degrees and raining. Or excuse me, no, that's I got my joint in.
Okay, and I'm letting you know
45 degrees and raining.
Right. Okay. I already have a bet in for this game. I took the under 46 when it first came out. I think I told you guys I was going to bet the under as soon as it came out. Yep. It was 46, so I took that. Right now, I think it's at 44
now.
Yep, yeah. 44 and a half. Yep. I'm a sharp. I'm just playing. No, I'm not. But but yeah. So that's that game. Yep.
Okay, so sliding over, man, your team, and it's supposed to be 70 degrees and
sunny man, it's
Sunday.
Not raining. Come on, all of us, all 49 fans are checking the weather, man. Say, okay.
Ooh, that's good.
All right, so
Lions and 49ers in Santa Clara, NFC Championship.
49ers have taken a hit as they should for after that Green Bay game. I just don't think Detroit is Green Bay. I think the 49ers are just superior across the board in this game. The Lions have allowed the 6th most passing yards per game this season, and they just let Baker throw for 349. I think they're the worst red zone passing defense in the playoffs as well too. The Lions, good win against the Rams and good win against Tampa Bay, but both of those teams ranked 22nd and 14th in defensive DVOA. So this is middle of the pack and below. And, they eked out those wins and got those wins. But I just think the 49ers are will be a different animal for them. And I also have a rule. I just don't take these dome teams in the playoffs outdoors. I don't care what the weather is. When they have these home games, it's just a different environment. When they go out on the road, it takes them a little bit of time to get going usually, and sometimes they just don't get going. A lot of times they just don't get going at all throughout the game. So I expect the 49ers to play a lot better. I don't think they can play any worse. I don't think Kyle Shanahan can coach any worse than they did against Green Bay. I believe the players and the coaching staff knows they are lucky to be here, and I think they're going to take advantage of that and take it out on the Lions. But also a side motivation is I'm seeing all these offensive players for the 49ers coming out and defending Brock Purdy on shows and podcasts and everything when people talk bad about him. So I think the offensive players will definitely be motivated to put in a performance, not just for the 49ers, but for Brock as well to, show that he's a good quarterback and that, he has what it takes for the team to win. What do you think, B?
I will start by saying I don't think it has anything to do with the weather because the weather is going to be beautiful. If the weather, usually the reason why you don't want dome teams in the outdoor is because most of these teams are not in sunny California, even in San Francisco. That's crazy weather for January up there. Or I should say Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
Yep. But anyways, I will say this. I mean, we're talking about, I really like Detroit. And I think that they have a puncher's chance of finding a way to stay in this game. The same way I thought the Green Bay has a puncher's chance of staying in this game. But there is a reality, and that is they're playing probably the most talented team. I don't think best, but I do think talented team in the NFL. They've got talent on both sides of the ball. They've got talent at the skill positions, and they have a guy at quarterback. Yes, that was a dig. But I just think that the reality of it is that talent overwhelms at some point. Even if Debo isn't able to play, which it's kind of trending in that direction, I think that's a big deal when it comes to spread. But I don't think it's enough to make it a situation where they're going to lose the game. So I'm going to say I'm going to take Detroit. And I'm going to take the 7 points because I think that maybe they can stay in it, and this will be a 3, 4, 5 point game at the end where they would have a chance, but just don't have the ability to overcome the difference. I just don't think it's going to be a boat race because I haven't seen the 49ers do that in a while. I think they've been playing teams a little bit closer than and not
tougher competition now.
Yeah. And not dominating them like they did earlier in the season. But even then, and Detroit and Green Bay, they aren't that far off from being, statistically around the same kind of place. And Goff is also one of those guys who can go out there and throw the ball and get back in games or stay in games with his arm. So yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite side of you, and take the 7 points.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. I won't be surprised no matter what. The other thing is, where Jared Goff played his college football, right? Like he's
Cal.
Home. Yeah, he's at home. He's from California. He played his ball at Cal.
He played the Niners a lot of times also.
Yeah, and he lost a lot too. And he has.
He's played against this team a lot of times. He's
used to playing in that stadium, whether good or bad.
Yeah,
right.
And so I don't think those things are going to be the impactful moment. I mean, he may throw picks, he may throw touchdowns, but I just think that Detroit's going to find a way to make it a game. I'm not predicting an upset, but make it a game.
So that means we got a shot, because I've already second bet. I've already bet the 49ers -7. Couldn't get 6.5, so I had to get -7, and we got a shot on that, because I just think Green Bay. I saw Green Bay beat them on Detroit on Thanksgiving. I just think Green Bay is just a better team than Detroit. I just don't think we have to deal with a lot of things that Green Bay presented us with Detroit. I think they're a fun team to watch. I just think that this is going to be a double-digit win for the 49ers. So we'll see. So we got a shot on that, +7 and -7, to start the next show, if you agree.
I'm in.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm gonna say
okay.
That's nothing
Sure.
ever.
right.
Oh, yeah.
One ain't nothing.
Good.
Yes. Next week, just so we all know, I'm in New York, so we might have to do something alternative. So will be the next time I'm home, which will be the weekend.
No problem.
Sounds good. Okay.
No problem.
Cool, man.
Oh, wait. Let me ask B a question real quick, Glenn. So let's just say a lot of people predicting, not everybody, but a lot of people are predicting Baltimore and San Francisco for different reasons. If these two teams are playing in Vegas for the Super Bowl, who's favorite? What's your point spread, Brian?
Baltimore -3.5.
Baltimore -3. Okay, now I would make it a pick. I honestly would make it a pick. If I had to, I think it's going to come out. It should be Baltimore -2, 2.5. But I really think that if that happens, it'll be San Francisco -1.5.
I love you, Coop, but I would not be disappointed to not see the Niners or Chiefs play in the Raider Stadium for the Super Bowl.
I know.
Not even remotely.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
And that creates very interesting conversations for the next pod. It doesn't go that way. But good luck to your boys. I don't hate. So whatever happens. If we was in it, it wouldn't matter, right? So go out and get that win. All right, we got a couple of minutes. I'm gonna throw this one out to y'all real quick before we hop in. Just take a couple of minutes with this. You guys mentioned something earlier, which I thought was interesting, and we were talking about Larry Bird made some comments on how he doesn't think players in that era, we were talking about this earlier, be that era is the 80s, which is 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
40 years. They wouldn't be able to hang with these guys, right? And so I think I kind of just want to get your guys' perspective on it. Me personally, I think that just the science and nutrition and just, the guys now get the benefit from all the years of basketball training, everything that comes that Bird and the boys didn't have. You did have players that could play then, but I think modern players would get them. What do y'all think?
Yeah. So here's what I'll say. I'll go first on this one. If you were to take the players from the 80s and put them in a time machine and bring them to now and have them play a game against these players or vice versa, there's no chance those 80s players are going to be able to compete with the athleticism of these players, the physical builds, the ability to recover. I mean, it used to be that an Achilles injury or an MCL injury was a career ender. Just ask Dominique, who ended up in Italy not long after he had his injury. So the reality of it is that there is just, as you mentioned, just a different level of athlete competing in the sport. Do I think that some of the best players from the 80s could come here and compete? Absolutely. Do I think some great players would still be great? Absolutely. But I think if you take a team of players from then and put them up against a team of players now, mind you, there are more teams now and the talent is more distributed now than it was back then. You just could take one of those teams from then and bring them now. They're not going to be able to
like the 1989's Rochester Sacramento Kings versus the Detroit Pistons of now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But if you did it at all the different levels, like the the teams at the bottom of it, or the teams at the middle and the teams at the top. I just think that, player to player, there's just a different level of athleticism, a different level of physicality, ability to be physical. I also think that if you really want to get technical, it would make a big difference on which rules you use. If you use 80s rules, it does give them a little bit of advantage because you can arm check, you can hold on to them. They didn't do it as much as they could in the 90s and 2000s when they started doing it. They got rid of the rule, but you could, and I think that those rules might offer them an advantage. But from end to end, I just think that there's just too much athleticism there. If you did the exact opposite and you let those players grow up in this time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Where Larry Bird's back injury is a couple months off and maybe a surgery or something like that instead of ending his career. And Dominique Wilkins can, repair his Achilles and come back next season at full strength, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And they've got band training and balance training, and they've got 12-pack abs and all the things that these athletes now have. It would be very interesting because I think skill for skill, those players had better developed skills and more fundamental basketball understanding than the players today do now because of the AAU and everything else. That's what
you made some really good points. Yeah, back then, look, players to me were more durable. They were bigger, and because it was a physical game. So, playing 80, 81, 82 games back then, it was the norm. A lot of players did it, even when they didn't have to do it. Now,
so I want to say, sorry to interrupt you. As John Daly always says, you can't pull fat. Like those players, they didn't have the physique. They didn't have all the pulled muscles and strains and all that stuff.
Yeah, real talk.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then that was funny though. And now we all know the game's more skill, it's more athletic, but these guys are getting hurt more, even though the game is not as physical. Players, if you just look at players back then, players today, these players look different and the skill level is different because the game is different. And Brian, you mentioned a good point, the rules. What rules are you playing by? If we play by those old 80 rules, guys back then would have a chance, but most wouldn't be able to make it. Yeah, we can name probably 20, 25, 30, 35 players that, could still play in this game. And they don't have to be Hall of Famers. It can be, guys like Rolando Blackman or Rod Strickland or somebody, you know what I mean? I think they could still play in this game. But when you go a majority of the players, people talk about Anthony Mason, all this, no. Because all they were good for was for fouls. And then if the fouls that they were doing, they would get kicked out for 10 games. So you can't play like that anymore. There's no use for having an enforcer or a bruiser like people had back then. So I don't think a majority of the players back then.
Draymond Green would argue with you.
You are funny. So, right, oh yeah, real talk. Yeah. But I don't think a majority of the players back then could play in today's game. But I also don't think a lot of players, I can't see a lot of players in today's game playing back then, because if you were big, strong, and physical, you had so much of an advantage to slow down these guys. Plus, you can foul pretty much as hard as you can and not have to worry about getting kicked out of a game. So,
throw blows back then.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Worthy and old boy did, and then they just got technical and still playing the game. Exactly. So you can literally fight. So, but yeah, I think it's just be too hard for a lot of these guys to play in today's game. But also, what's that?
Go ahead. I was just say we should look at this a little deeper because, I'm looking at this 1989 Lakers team. I would take them against Warriors. I'd take them against
the Lakers could play,
bro.
Because that Lakers team, especially I think the '87 Lakers, they can play half court and they can play full court. I mean, they had both. That team can play.
Legends.
But I'm talking about a majority of the players. Definitely. I mean, they couldn't play. They couldn't play in today's game.
I might take that team as the greatest team ever, damn near.
That's why it's included.
Late 80s Lakers.
Yeah, that's why it's included.
Them up against anybody, damn near.
Yeah.
I wish that team had a younger Kareem.
Yeah. We got the older version. Yeah.
True that.
He was. Yeah. Yep. He was like 40 in his 40s. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was a legend, but he wasn't going to be able to body up Shaq.
No.
Right. But I wonder because that team was so well built. It'd be interesting to watch with everybody there. But all right, cool. Good looking, guys.
Can I throw one more thing out there?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Throw it out.
Yeah, we got a few minutes.
It's a different subject. Go ahead. So you go ahead and finish.
Oh, no, I was going to say another player who I think is very underrated who definitely could play in this game is Hakeem Olajuwon.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
100%.
But go ahead. Yep.
And he'd still be great.
Yeah.
You guys see the narrative and the message after Cat scored 62 where his coach said it was the most despicable thing he's ever seen on a basketball court, and he played trash basketball. I have never ever seen that. So Embiid scored 70, and everyone's throwing a ticker tape. Most efficient, best basketball player ever. Same night, Cat gets 62, and his teammates that shunned him. His coach came out in the press conference and ripped him a new one and said it
immature
was disgusting.
basketball.
It was immature basketball. It was disgusting basketball. And basically said this was worthless. And nobody in his team came out and was like, "Oh, that's really impressive." I've never seen anything like that.
Minnesota record. Minnesota record.
He said he was stat hunting.
Stat padding. Oh, he's doing the Russell Westbrook. Oh, my bad. Did I say that?
That's the thing. When Russell Westbrook did it, we all applauded. Yeah. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is fun to watch."
Not
we, the crowd.
Yeah, I
not
understand
me,
what you mean.
Well, he averaged a triple double though. He didn't do
night, man. I booed Westbrook last night.
He didn't do one game that got him these many points.
Oh yeah,
lost.
okay, yeah.
He averaged a triple.
To see Cat, who's leading a team who's at the top of the Western Conference, and have his coach blow him up like that, it makes me wonder what's about to happen next. Because he has not shown the emotional maturity to take that and go, "Oh, he's just trying to do a teaching moment," and keep playing hard. Like if you see him moping the next time he plays and scores 4, and, it's gonna be.
I didn't actually see the interview, but reading the thing, he was saying how it was a team thing because they saw him getting hot and they just gave him the ball and sat back. So he was like, everybody just sat up and watched.
But that's what usually happens.
He called him out though specifically in parts of it.
Yeah, but everybody watched when Kobe had that last game of 60 or other games that Kobe was playing early in his career. But you sat back and watched. People did that with Jordan too. They just sat back and watched. I mean, it's what happens. Yeah. What else you gonna do when somebody's putting up 60? Ain't gonna be a lot of other points out there.
I think that's the point of the coaches. We still run plays. We still should be doing something. You can't just pass it into the middle and go start playing cards.
I don't know.
Karl Anthony Towns, by the way, was 2 for 10 tonight for 27 points.
Oh, they 2 for 10.
He was 2 for 10 in the fourth of that last game.
Oh, damn.
With the 62.
How are you 2 for 10 from 3 as a center? But anyways, moving on.
Right,
yeah. So let's get to the end of our show, man. Starting with Brian, the segment Brian created. It's a bunch of hogwash when he said that one time in a show. We all laughed at it and we made it a regular recurring thing. So what do you guys have that's a bunch of hogwash in sports this week?
Oh, Brian, you want to go first? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go first.
Go for it.
You know what's hogwash, man? Ring Central and its updates. So for all of you who've been listening up to this point, we're going to let y'all in a little secret. This is take 2. We had started a really outstanding episode where Jason and I were sparring and going all of a sudden, and then Glenn just disappeared. So it's hogwash that so much good tape, a good talk was lost due to that. So yeah. I'm still bummed about that. I thought we did an outstanding job elsewise, but that stuff, that dynamic we had going in that conversation was excellent.
Yeah, it really was. This is a second take, everybody. The first one was really, really good.
Bummed out.
Really good. Man, my hogwash is Amy Trash talking about Brock Purdy like that, talking about there's 7 skilled and whatever quarterbacks, whatever. And then there's, the guy from San Francisco putting no spec on his name. You know what I'm saying? I understand he ain't the most athletically gifted and most talented guy out there, but the guy has had a good season. Okay. Yeah, he's put together 2 back-to-back seasons. Okay. 2 pretty good back-to-back seasons and made 2 NFC championship games. So Amy Trash is the same woman that couldn't find out how to make money in one of the most lucrative areas in America, the Bay Area. So I don't want to hear her mouth about my quarterback. Okay.
Yeah. Not fair.
She was a Raiders executive, by the way.
Tougher with the old stadium, which we both know. You've been to the stadium. Brock Purdy, where do you rank him? I mean, we can't do this now, but if you look at the playoff quarterbacks, you weren't going to put him in the top 5. You personally were not going to put him in the top 5.
Who was it? I have to think. Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember.
If you put him in there, he's at the very bottom. Is all I'm gonna say.
Oh no!
Of the 5, if you make him to the top 5, you have to put him.
Okay.
He's not messing with them top dudes, bro.
Right. That's true. Right.
So to that point, I think that was the conversation she was saying. But
don't be defending her because she's a Raider.
Of course, I'm gonna do it.
You
know I'm gonna do it. All right, fine. I didn't really have one, but now, man, it's the fact that the Chiefs and Niners might be in the damn Super Bowl. I do not want to see this game again. So if y'all make it, and then play the Ravens. I do not want to see the Chiefs again. I've seen this movie too many times, man. So give me something different.
Especially when it's in your stadium.
Definitely that. But if the
Yeah.
Niners do it, cool. I'm here with the Niner fans, whatever. Personally, I always like seeing a new team get it right. What would happen in Detroit if they were to make it is going to be way bigger than the Niners 6.
Yeah.
But y'all
Yeah.
have the better team win the game. So that's that. We also will have to get to the coaches next show
Yeah.
because we didn't get to do that. So we'll talk about that next show. And there we actually might have some more coaching dominoes fall by that time too. So that'll work out. Last
Next week's
segment.
an off week. There's no games that weekend, so we got more time.
Yeah, that'll work. So now we got the minute to win it. It's a chance for you to say pretty much anything that you want for the last few minutes of the show. If you guys got anything, go for it.
Man, I don't have nothing because this is our second take. So I'm just gonna say thank you everybody for listening to this podcast.
Got it. I'm gonna end this one. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I'm pretty sure you're about to say it.
Okay.
So
fair.
the only thing that I will say is I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm gonna let it go because I'm pretty sure you're going the same place.
Yeah, I'm sure we are because in honor of our father, Glenn Jared Boyd passed away three years ago today.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say love to
Yep.
Pops, Lakered up, Raidered up. You know, most of the things I love come from him. I'm thankful to be his son and to have learned learn from him and look just like him. And shout out to Mom, shout out to Lil, Brian. You know, it's your dad too. You know, in a lot of ways. So just thankful for Pops. We love you.
Yep.
You with us always, man. So thankful to my dad. I love you guys. Thank you for letting me do this show, man. It's been a great run. We've just like 6 years in or something ridiculous. But thanks for everybody who listens, and we'll catch y'all next week.
It's been a pleasure to live in. It was a pleasure to live in his orbit. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Great, man. Just real quick story, man. My youngest son, Jace, when we first came to your house, Glenn, for a Memorial Day weekend, I'll never forget this. So I'm walking with him out the car. You just happen, your dad is out there with somebody. I forgot who it was. Your dad is there. He never seen Jace before. And Jace doesn't run to anybody he doesn't know. Nobody. He just stares at you. Your dad smiled, just looked down and smiled, and Jay sprinted over to him, and I never seen that in my life. It was that spirit that your dad had, man. It was just infectious, man. And it just like Jill said, if Big Glenn didn't like you, then you wasn't shit. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. So yeah,
Respect.
shout out, seriously, real talk.
That's the way to end it, man.
Man.
Shout out to Pops. We love you. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch y'all next time. Thanks. Peace.